catchment area is located in West Victoria. The headwaters of the Wimmera River begin in the Victorian Pyrenees around Elmshurst. From here it flows eastwards to the northern end of the Grampians, through Glenorchy and onto the regional centre of Horsham. There are a number of major creeks and rivers that connect with the Wimmera, such as the Mackenzie River that flows west from Lake Wartock in the Grampians to join the Wimmera just west of Horsham. From here it runs north through the Little Desert and the township of Dimboola, and further north to Jeparit, where it terminates at Lake Hindmarsh.
The Wimmera is quite an interesting catchment. It's what's called an endorrheic system, so it actually ends in what are called terminal lakes, so it doesn't actually drain to the ocean or connect up with any of the major river systems. Quite extreme circumstances, it probably would connect to that mid-Murray section, but it's essentially a catchment that just drains to a series of quite large lakes. So it has a slightly unusual fish population because it's not connected to the Murray-Darling Basin. It does have some of those species, but a lot of particularly the larger bodied things like Murray cod and golden perch, they're not actually native to that system. They're sort of Murray-Darling natives which have been brought across. I guess freshwater catfish is another one that's it's a fairly rare species, I guess. Throughout Australia, it's sort of becoming under threat. There's a couple of species in that part of the world which are not determined as yet. They are presumed to be sort of new species, but they're sort of still trying to figure that out. So if you've got the Glenelg spiny crayfish and a couple of other bush yabbies, you've got a fairly interesting kind of crustacean diversity there. That part of the state is actually pretty interesting in terms of crustacean diversity, I suppose. So I guess that part of the world has been intermittently linked with the Murray-Darling sort of over 5 to 6 million years. There's some interesting sort of genetic lineages for the things that actually persist there. They don't sort of really occur anywhere else in the state. They're sort of quite unique to that part of the world. So it's a pretty interesting part of the world in that respect.
In this semi-arid region, the condition of the river can vary greatly from year to year. It is one of the driest parts of Victoria, and the region has a long history of water extraction for agricultural use. In particularly dry times, such as the drought period from around the late 90s to the late 2000s, the river was recognised as the most stressed system in the Murray-Darling Basin. The lower reaches of the river received no flow at all for several years, and receded into small pools with salinity too high for fish to survive. Lake Hindmarsh remained dry as a bone. The stagnant pools created rotten egg gas odour that caused ongoing discomfort for people living in Jeparit, where the river terminates. Fortunately, towards the end of the decade, the Wimmera Mallee Pipeline, Australia's largest ever water infrastructure project, was completed. The system of pipe replaced the old bare earth channels that moved water through the region for agricultural and domestic use. Prior to the implementation of the pipeline, up to 60% of the water in the open channels was lost due to evaporation. The end of the decade also brought significant rains. Annual discharge in the upper Wimmera went from as low as 738 megalitres towards the end of the drought in 2009 to as high as nearly 200,000 megalitres in 2011. The extra availability of water after the drought allowed for an increase in environmental water releases, where quantities of water storage are released directly to benefit the habitats and organisms within the system. Aquatic ecologist Anthony Byrne was part of a team conducting monitoring in the region to try and measure how plant, bug and fish communities responded to the increased flows as part of the Victorian Environmental Flows Monitoring and Assessment Program, also known as VEFMAP.
Typically it's using electrofishing and using a combination of boat electrofishing and backpack electrofishing. The method is passing a current through the water, and that's able to stun fish. They sort of float to the surface. You're able to pick them up and identify them accurately, and then you can release them because they will recover in a matter of seconds, and then they can swim away. It's a very low impact way of surveying for native fish.
The results of Tony's monitoring program showed that there were a number of key stretches in the Wimmera River that had responded very well to the availability of water. Strategic watering is now being implemented to connect surviving populations of fish with habitats that have been previously decimated but are now returning to good condition. But all indications suggest we are now about to head into another period of prolonged drought in the Wimmera region. Annual discharges in the upper Wimmera for the previous year were recorded at 617 megalitres. This is even lower than those recorded in the drought of the late 1990s and early 2000s. The issue is that when conditions are this dry, water has to be allocated very carefully. It is the job of the Victorian Water Holding Authority and the Wimmera Catchment Management Authority to allocate environmental flows in a highly strategic and efficient manner under these low flow or no flow conditions. It is hoped that this time round, with the improved water delivery infrastructure of the Wimmera Mallee pipeline system, that the system's ability to cope with the next few years of drought will be increased. Programs like the VEFMAP monitoring are going to be vital to inform water managers' decisions and, importantly, to demonstrate that the environmental flows being delivered are effective, as has been the case for the last few years.